You. All right, here we go. I guess we're starting live. We are 1 minute late. I'm sorry, everybody, for for that little delay. Today, well, just welcome you again really fast. My name is Justin Cromer. I'm one of the co-founders of WebTech. I have Xavier Smith here with us to talk about pay-per-click today. So last week, actually, X did a great job kind of talking about how to set up your campaign, how to do some keyword research. It's initially, kind of the initial how to start your campaigns essentially. And this week we're going to be looking a lot more at the conversion side of things, because that's what it's all about. Is getting more conversion. Really, particularly when you're looking at cost per click, or sorry, when you're looking at a pay per click, you're looking at some key metrics. Really, the most important are return on ad spend and cost per acquisition. So return on ad spend essentially is a formula of like how much money did you make for how much money you spent. Pretty obvious. And then cost per acquisition means cost per either lead or sale or whatever your particular goal may happen to be. And it'll kind of give you a dollar figure of how much you spend per transaction or per conversion. Essentially, they call it an acquisition, but sometimes it's called cost per conversion and other things like that too. But CPA is a kind of more official term. So those are a couple of the main things that we'll be talking about. I know Xavier's got a bunch of slides to present, and I'm going to kind of ask some questions to him along the way, I think, as we go. But yeah, we don't need to take too much time. I also do want to just go ahead and welcome anybody who's on the podcast today. That if you want to submit your URL, we'd be happy to take a look at your landing pages. You can do that live on the call. Through the chats or whatever. We got a bunch of platforms we're on and people watching for us to field those questions and things like that. So feel free to ask questions as we go along, and feel free to submit your landing page URL, and we'll be happy to look at it and give you our take on how well it is set up for conversion. After the call, you can also submit to us your your Google AdWords account and some other things that we can fill in later, and we'll be happy to give you a better, like a personalized breakdown, a custom breakdown. And that's all kind of after this call, but hopefully you get some value out of this and learn how you can do some of this stuff yourself. And that's really the intention of this webinar series, is to kind of give you guys all the tools to kind of help manage your own marketing yourself. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the time over to Xavier, and I'll let you go ahead and take over with your presentation.
All right. Give me 1 second.
While you pull that up, I'll just let you know Xavier is fantastic when it comes to pay-per-click. He's been doing pay-per-click for about 7 years now. Is that right, Xavier?
Going on 6 or maybe 7. It's been a long time.
he kind of knows a lot. It seems like 7, I'll say that much. So anyway, we'll let you go from there, though.
Can you guys see my screen okay?
I'm not seeing it. Anybody else? Comments?
Okay, wait a minute. I'm so sorry. Technical difficulties.
There's a little plus down at the bottom, I think, in the middle of this StreamYard.
Okay, what about now?
I'm not seeing it. Maybe Oscar, I don't know if you can. There we go.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So this week we're going to talk about conversions and kind of understanding what a conversion is, why it's important, and how we can kind of get the most out of them. Wait, here we go. So a conversion is simply it's an action that you want someone to do on your website. It's basically like a goal, a win for you and your marketing campaigns. And it's very closely related to your return on investment, right? Because let's say if you sell shoes, for example, one of your main conversion actions is going to be for someone to buy shoes, which is directly correlated to however much you make off of a pair of shoes. So why should you track these conversions? Well, inside of your ads accounts, right, a conversion is going to be associated to, keywords and ads and ad groups and locations and literally anything. And what this will tell you is, wow, this keyword, this ad, this location, This thing is what's giving me the most conversions. I should invest more into that. Right? Which ties into number two. It helps you focus your efforts. Number three, it allows you to measure your return on investment or ad spend. Um, Essentially, when you're setting up your conversions, you can associate a value to that conversion, and the ad account will be able to then calculate how much revenue you've generated from said conversion action, which again ties into number two and lets you know where to focus your efforts. And then four, number four, it helps you improve your website, right? It allows you to understand which items, what actions are leading people to convert on your website. And that can then tell you what needs to stay or go or change when you are doing conversion rate optimization on your landing pages.
Yeah, and I would just say let you go to the next slide here, but I'll just tell you just in terms of conversions. Well, you're about to say types of conversions. I'll let you cover this, and then I'll add to it.
So there, it's kind of interesting how you think about this, but let's say that there are three types of conversions, and then within those three types there's multiple different types of conversions of those types of conversions. It's kind of confusing. So there's primary conversions, right? And these are conversion actions that are directly correlated with your business goal. So going back to the shoe person, you want sales. You want to sell shoes. So your primary conversion action is going to be a sale because this is directly correlated to your goal, which is to make money selling shoes.
Yeah, and yeah, now before we move on from that, I mean, the short way of saying this is that most of our clients' goals are going to be e-commerce transactions, so dollars through transactional um, conversions. There's also lead generation, so it's going to be a form submission, clicking on a phone, or clicking on email, maybe even live chat. And then sometimes it's like book an appointment, schedule a demo, something like that, where it's part of a scheduler. Those are usually the three primary conversions. And then I know you're going to talk about secondary conversions next.
So, unlike a primary conversion, a secondary conversion is not necessarily tied to your revenue directly, but it's still valuable to your goal, right? For example, let's say some of you may have a newsletter, right? So a good secondary conversion for you to track would be newsletter signups, because you can then, keep them in the loop about new products, new deals, new services that you make, and they can later become new customers.
It's kind of further down the road. It's also sometimes it's things like you want them to watch a video, you want them to be on a certain page for a certain period of time.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just even adding something into your cart, possibly. I mean, that's part of the funnel. But sometimes you can kind of set up different triggers that you're looking for in order to kind of get to a later sale, and then we can end up talking later about how we can actually do like remarketing campaigns. You might talk about this later in the slides, but for example, we can target through remarketing people who have come through the shopping cart but did not convert, for example. And we can serve them if they look at a certain product. We can serve them an ad that's based on a specific product they looked at. So we can look at very specific types of actions or events, we call them, and target people that way.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And then there are tertiary goals, which the way that I've written this kind of sounds funny, but essentially, tertiary goals are kind of underneath secondary goals. They have value still, but just not as much value as those secondary goals. Um, and one type of tertiary goal that comes to mind for me is like people basically asking you questions, like maybe using your chatbot or something like that, or calling to ask you like I don't know, questions like what time do you open, things like that. They're not as valuable as those primary and secondary conversions, but they're still valuable. They still allow people to enter into your funnel, and they give you a chance to kind of make an impression on people so that they could come back to you later when they are ready to convert. Okay. So now that we have talked about conversions, let's talk about conversion tracking. So, conversion tracking is basically what it sounds like. You're tracking the conversions that are happening on your website and in your campaigns, and you're associating them to certain aspects of your campaigns so that later down the line, you can make informed decisions about, what's working and what's not working for you.
Yeah, and the things that may be working, it's going to be things having to do with your ad campaigns. So we can get more into specifically like the way the ad copy is written, the way that the landing pages that we're sending to, things like that, and also and like offers, things like that. But also, it's things like around the landing page experience. So how we look at value proposition, how we look at user experience, the even the colors of the buttons, trying different offers like free shipping versus buy one get one free. There's all different types of offers that we can play with, and those are some of the things that you want to kind of measure against and see what improvements you're making, and or changes you're making, what improvements, or maybe you could even be hurting your performance. So
Exactly. So, the way that conversion tracking works is the ad platform that you decide to use, in our case, Google Ads, is going to give you a pixel or a piece of code that you then put onto your site. And you tell that piece of code, hey, I want to listen for whatever your actions that you want to listen for are. And when someone completes that action, it hears it, it sends it to your ad account and Google Analytics, and you basically collect data on what had happened, and you can make decisions from that data that you've compiled. So here's just a list of tools that we use or that I use to track conversions. So there's Google Ads conversion tracking, which you would have to have an ad account for that. There's Google Analytics, which is what we use for our SEO efforts. There's Google Tag Manager. It's my favorite because you can you can track so many things with Google Tag Manager. Then there's the Facebook Pixel, there's LinkedIn conversion tracking, and there's even HubSpot conversion tracking.
and Google Analytics is probably the most popular. I'd say most people have Google Analytics on their website. If they don't, you probably should. And it's actually used for tracking really all channels, all actions. I mean, there's this, that's an entire other deep study we can get into later. But I would say Google Analytics is probably the most common for people maybe on this call. And, we'd be happy to kind of walk through anybody who wants to know how you set those up. They're actually fairly simple to do, but that's something we can get into a little bit deeper.
Absolutely. So why is this all important? Again, I want to reiterate that when you start tracking your conversions, you can then associate those conversions to certain aspects of your campaigns. So that's going to be your ads, that's going to be locations, that's going to be your bids, your keywords. Literally every teeny tiny detail of your ad campaign can be associated to a conversion, which you can then use that information to say, this is working for me, or this is not working for me. And it also allows you to then understand what's driving profitability inside of those campaigns as well. Conversion tracking is counting like it's like counting how many people do what we want them to do after they see our ads online. It helps us know what works well so that we can make better ads and sell more things. This is why we track conversions. Okay, and so now we're going to talk about conversion values. This is more so in like before you set up anything, you kind of need to understand how much a conversion is worth to you. Conversion value is the metric that represents the monetary value of a conversion. It is crucial to understand how much a conversion is worth to your business, because then you can take that value from the number of conversions you've gotten and say, look, my ad campaigns have generated X amount of revenue.
So, for example, I know you're about to cover this, but I'll just say it's quickly that one good example is that, let's say that you are a massage therapist. If you get a new lead and that client closes, and you book an appointment, you probably charge anywhere from $100 to $200, somewhere in that range for a session, and that would be probably the value. But in order to get that, now, first of all, I'll just say also, we have some clients where one lead, say you're a real estate agent and you get $1 million home listing, that's worth $30,000 or so. So there's a huge range in the value of a conversion. It has to do with your particular business. So you have to kind of figure how many leads does it take to get one to close? Maybe the massage therapist, maybe every two leads turns into a booking. So they have about a 50% closing rate. They could afford to probably spend, $50 to $100 maybe per lead, and still get a return on the investment as they're growing their book of business. Obviously they want to try to get those leads for $10 or less, most likely, but you can still make a profit if you're growing your business that way. Whereas a real estate agent, they're going to probably end up paying per lead, upwards of, hundreds of dollars to potentially even thousands of dollars before they get a good lead. But then the return on that investment is $30,000. So a really good return on investment still, but you're going to have to probably do a lot more work with more leads to find that $1 million home as a real estate agent. So it really comes down to how many leads does it take you to get one close, one actual conversion. And then you can kind of work back your cost per acquisition based off those numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And that relates to this slide as well. Basically, if conversion value is, the value of a lead. So if you have a product that you sell for $50, someone converts, that means that conversion is worth $50.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would maybe say that maybe it's the profit of that product actually, because if you're spending $50 and you sell a product for 50, but it's only it costs $25 for you, then you only make $25 on that. So you'd want to consider actually your profit margin as well. But in terms of keeping things simple, I mean, I would say general rule is most retail is double what your cost is, and there's obviously a range in that, but you would know that in your business, and that'd be something to consider as well as your margin, not just the top line revenue.
All right. So here are some secret formulas that will help you along your way as you're, figuring out, how profitable your campaigns and conversions are. So the most important one that we look at and that all people who run ads look at is ROAS, or return on ad spend. Or in other words, did we make back more money in revenue than we spent on advertising? So all you'll need to calculate this is the value of your conversions, the cost of your advertising, and you'll divide the value of your conversions by the cost of your advertising. So let's say you have a product or service that's worth $100 and you got eight people to purchase that product or service. So you made $800, but you spent $200 on acquiring those people via advertising. So that would mean that your ROAS is, did I say $200? 4. Or in other words, you made, for every dollar you spent on advertising, you made $4 back. Is that
It's
right?
like the ultimate metric for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And then there is your break even ROAS. It's important to know how much you need to make before you to break even, so that way you can kind of set goals for yourself. You say, oh, okay, so if I get this many conversions, I've broken even. If I get more than this, I'm in the green. And essentially all you'll need is to know your profit margins. which every business is going to be different, and everybody's going to want to put in different aspects, but you need to know your profit margin, and to figure it out, you divide one by your profit margin, and that will be your break even ROAS that you need to make. And then anything beyond that is just profit.
It's like printing money, as I always say.
Basically, just like printing money.
So you get basically to the point of diminishing return, or really the point of where it's no longer profitable. You can always basically push that ceiling up as high as you can, responsibly over time, optimizing, as you go. And that's kind of the way that we track is we spend a time with clients. We figure out what is the cost per acquisition and what is the break even point for them. There's some things that we'll get into maybe a little bit later about lifetime values of customers. I mean, we're looking right now, everything is basically one-on-one transactional, but a lot of times people will actually come back after they find out about your brand, and they're going to come back and purchase again and again. They may end up telling their friends, so there's also some additional value that you get beyond, this first initial transaction that you get through, introducing the customer to your brand. So there's also lifetime value that we need to also consider when we're deciding whether or not this is profitable. And I would say that, like, a lot of startups, for example, I've been in these situations several times, and initially we're actually like, okay, just breaking even as long as we're growing our customer base, because we know we can email market to them, we know that they'll come back and repurchase and things like that. Eventually you get to the point where you really want your ROAS to start going up, where you're getting a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1 ROAS. But maybe initial stages of a startup, you're actually okay just paying to grow your customer base and get the word out there about your brand.
Absolutely. So next we have determining the cost per conversion for forms. It's a little bit different than your overall cost per conversion, assuming that you're tracking more than just form signups. But you kind of want to know how much you're paying for these form submissions, because yes, this is a lead, but you have to actually come back and close the deal with the form submission type leads. So it's kind of hard to say, yes, they're 100% a new customer from this. But essentially, all you will need is your average cost per conversion. So your cost per form submission, and then your average form conversion rate, or in other words, this is the percentage of those forms that actually turn into leads. And then from there you just divide the average cost per form from your campaign divided by the form conversion rate, and that'll give you the true cost per conversion for forms, which you can then use to determine your break even cost per acquisition for your forms. Because again, we kind of want to know how much we need to make before we're profitable, so that way we have goals to work towards, right? And all you'll need is the average profit per sale from that form submission multiplied by the form conversion rate, and then you can determine what your CPA needs to be in order for you to break even for forms. And again, I'm saying forms, but that can also be interchangeable with like signups or phone calls or literally anything like that.
Yeah, essentially kind of primary goal other than e-commerce transactions, right? So
Exactly.
forms, email clicks, phone clicks, signups, scheduled demos, all those kind of things.
Oh, is it set 4? Well, all right. So that was the last slide.
Yeah. So I think that was a really good breakdown. A lot of the formulas and understanding around what are the key metrics when it comes to, pay-per-click. I'm wondering if there's anybody who has a landing page. Anybody submit a landing page that we want to look at, for example? If we don't have any, we can kind of talk through maybe, I don't know if Xavier, if you have any that come to mind in terms of landing pages that we can kind of highlight and just kind of show. I'll definitely, as you think about that, for like some sort of a visual maybe, and we can even look at, we can look at either Maloka or WebTech or whatever also, if we want easy examples. But if you happen to have any, other examples or studies that are out there that you want to just kind of use as a visual, that's good. I'll tell you, there's certain things in terms of just general when you're considering your landing pages. A lot of it's going to be about having pages that load really fast, that really have a strong, what we call value proposition. So essentially showing, the value of what you're offering, and how you present that to the client. It's going to have things to do with, trust emblems, for example. So people feeling like they can trust the website, easy checkout processes, forms that have reCAPTCHA on them that also are that have like trust emblems on them that are things like those you'll see badges from many different types of websites that will essentially kind of validate that you are a legit website. And I'm just kind of riffing here, Xavier. Are there other things that you also want to kind of highlight just in terms of good landing page conversion best practices?
Strong messaging.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's okay. Maybe do you have any examples you can think of? I mean, you don't have to visual necessarily if you don't have it, but any thoughts around what's a good strong message?
Um, well, it depends on your audience.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're tapping into your audience's needs and wants,
Mm-hmm.
they will contact you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of creating that emotional connection. And
Hmm.
we when we're talking with clients about campaigns that we're going to be doing, we always start by saying, what are your goals? And your goals can be multiple goals. I mean, sometimes we have clients who are doing lead generation and e-commerce, and some of them are doing B2B with an audience of B2B and B2C, and they have multiple demographics within it. So there's a kind of a wide variety of what their goals may be. But ultimately it's like once we understand the goal, then we can identify the audience. And once we know the audience, that's where we can really start to segment out the campaigns and start to really set up different landing page, particularly for maybe different demographics or different types of search queries or campaigns. So you may be having the same type of product that you're selling, but if it's, let's say, for example, you're trying to appeal, let's just say, for example, we have a client that might be in like a green space, right? Somebody who makes rechargeable batteries. We actually have a client who does rechargeable batteries, lithium-ion rechargeable batteries. They have multiple audience segments. They have people who are people who care about the kind of green initiative or whatever. They care about protecting the planet and doing things that are more responsible for the environment, all those kind of things, and that's their motivation. So a good landing page for a campaign like that would definitely highlight a lot about the environmental aspect of the kind of features and benefits of the product. Whereas some of the people, it's more like they want rechargeable batteries because it's a cost saving effort. So they know that if they buy one battery once, but they just can recharge it over and over and over, they're going to save money that way. And some people, it's more like a convenience thing because it's like, you're out in the outdoors, maybe there's an outdoor enthusiast who's off grid and they want something that they can plug into, like a solar panel and charge the batteries on the go. So there's different types of features and benefits that actually appeal to different audiences. And so your landing pages and your ads, particular to those different types of segments, should be set up in a way that appeals to those different people in better ways. Other things that I can think of too is just, excuse me, in terms of like offers, right? Like sometimes bundling things together where you get the whole set of batteries, if we're going to say that, where you can get, double A's, triple A's, 9 volts and whatever sizes bundled together. And that's one good way to like get a higher average order value and really kind of show a little bit, maybe like a good deal to the client. And there's also other things too, like I mentioned before, like, do you offer free shipping at a certain price point? Do you offer that if you buy 3 battery packs, you get one of them for free? You can try all different types of offers that will, get you a better conversion rate. So it's a lot of it just comes down to testing and being creative about, what might appeal to the client or the customer. And ultimately it comes down to testing and numbers. So yeah, and I would just also say that we're always happy to give a free analysis of landing page and campaigns. So if you guys do want to reach out to us, we're happy to assist you on a kind of more personal, customized level. Xavier, is there anything else that you want to share or add to this?
No.
Feeling good?
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're at about a half hour or so right now, which is, I think, is plenty of time to cover this particular topic. Was kind of a conversion 101. We'd be happy to go a lot deeper if maybe next time we'll go a little bit deeper into showing some exact examples of what a good conversion landing page looks like versus not so good conversion landing page. And I'll also just kind of remind everybody that we are doing a 6-part series. We're doing 2 on SEO, so on page and off page SEO. And we're doing 2 on pay-per-click. We just finished the second one. The first one was about setting up campaigns. The second one's about conversion. And we're going to be expanding on these topics, and kind of like, they're not going to always be the same every time, but we're going to keep within kind of a 6-week program. So if you miss the first 2, you can always come back to them as it cycles back through. Then the next, the final number 5 and 6 of our series is on actually conversion rate optimization, and that actually ties in really well with the PPC conversion, because conversion rate optimization is really about overall CRO. So not just from particular channel, but really all channels hitting your website. And different channels kind of need different things sometimes, although they all benefit from these types of improvements. So and then the final one that we offer in the series is about Google My Business, or it's now called Google Business Profile, but that's like the local search box where everybody's seen it, that has a map listing and the phone number and the reviews and photos from the image, from the company, all those kind of things. And that's actually really important part of your strategy, especially as a local business. And that's a free tool that almost everyone can utilize. But there's a lot of tips and tricks to how to get the best, get the most out of that profile. And we'll be happy to show you guys some hacks and just kind of best practices from one of our experts here who's really good at it. So that's really all we have for today. Thank you guys for your time jumping on, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, Xavier. Also,
You're welcome. Bye.
bye.